Happy Shadow Ticket Day! Like probably everybody that watches this channel, I am so excited to read Thomas Pynchon's new book, but I want to take my time with it. I don't want to plow through it just so I can get a video on the internet. So instead, I'm going to celebrate by counting down my least favorite thing about every one of his novels. For Gravity's Rainbow, it's the Brigadier Pudding scene. And if you've read this book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Brigadier Pudding is running this military facility to make sure he does his job. The military keeps him enthralled to this dominatrix who makes him do some really disgusting things. Now, in general, I love the way Pynchon combines highbrow concepts and lowbrow humor. In this specific instance, it felt like he put a really terrible image in my head just so he could get off a joke about eating something and liking it. For Vineland, it is the meeting or lack thereof between Prairie and her Montfarnese Gates. Now, this book is about the subcultures that make up America. It's about why the revolutions of the 60s failed to really change the country. But the framing device is about a teenage girl trying to figure out why her mom abandoned her. These two women finally get to meet each other at the very end of the book, but their meetings just kind of skated over. And I realize that that's not really the point of the book, but I still would have liked some sort of emotional catharsis. For Inherent Vice, one of my favorite books, also one of my favorite movies, it's The Trip to Las Vegas. One of the best things about this book is the atmosphere that Pynchon builds around Los Angeles at this place and time. And then suddenly all the characters get up and go to Las Vegas for a few pages to find Mickey Wolfman. I actually like the way that the movie handled this a little bit better, unveiling him at the Chris Krylodon Institute, Chris Krylodon. It just felt like a more authentic way to say the same thing without breaking the atmosphere. For Crying a Lot 49, my least favorite thing was the play within a play. This is a conceit that just never works for me. I didn't like it in Hamlet either. It's when all the characters have all this momentum, and suddenly they sit down to watch some totally separate story unfold. In the Crying a Lot 49, that story is called The Courier's Tragedy, and they're hinting at the history of this secret postal service. It's important to the book. The second time I read it, I didn't mind it nearly as much. The first time, it just felt it killed the momentum. It killed all the fun that I was having. For Bleeding Edge, it's the way he handles the internet in general. I actually love the way that Pynchon approached the internet in Inherent Vice. It was this thing that was just coming into being. And the characters were suspecting, hey, this might seem cool, but what if it becomes just one more way to control us? Pynchon tried to build on this in Bleeding Edge, but it just didn't feel quite as authentic to me. V was the hardest book for me to answer this question about, because the truth is, even though I've read it basically twice, I don't remember it that well. It was the only Pynchon novel I really felt I had to struggle through, the only one I ever felt I had to force myself to read just to be a completist. So I guess I'm just going to say all of it. For Against the Day, for me this is like the most fun Thomas Pynchon novel. It's this giant encyclopedia of all the crazy things that were happening around the turn of the century. There's no one scene that stands out as something that, oh, I really didn't like that. But there's also nothing that stands out as, oh, that really hit me in the gut. That really changed the way that I think about my life. So for Against the Day, I'm just going to say like the lack of an emotional gut punch scene. Which brings me to Mason and Dixon. Now, I started this channel by creating a video about the best places to start reading at Thomas Pynchon. And a lot of people said, well, hey, what's the greatest Thomas Pynchon novel? And that's such a subjective question. Like, I don't really know anyone can really answer that. But I know that for me, I think if you said, hey, what's his greatest literary achievement? 100 years in the future, I have to put a book in someone's hand and say, this is why this person matters. Right now, having not read Shadow Ticket, I think I would give them Mason and Dixon. There is no scene in this book that feels out of place to me. There is a captivity narrative that I guess you could say is a play within a play, but because the nature of this book is about stories, it felt a little bit more right to me. It felt like it belonged within the narrative. And this book absolutely floored me at the end. The realizations, the things that it was saying both about America, but also about the good that we can do for each other. If we just try to support each other and respect each other as people, I think this is probably his greatest novel, and there is nothing about this book that I can point to and say, oh, the talking duck or whatever, I didn't like it. I liked it all. I hope that didn't feel like a cop-out. I come at this from the perspective of a fan, not a critic, and the goal of writing is not to write a perfect novel with no scene that nobody can point to. In fact, having those scenes, that we can look at and say, hey, that didn't work for me, that's one sign that you're pushing the boundaries. And it's one of the reasons that Thomas Pynchon is one of the greatest authors in American history. David Foster Wallace said something like, every writer is a realist in the sense that he or she is trying to say something about how the world really feels to them. And my own attempt to do this was The Nihilisticats. The Nihilisticats follows a couple of core characters in today's modern internet-driven culture. And then around these two people who are trying to get some sort of closure or comfortableness with their own identities and their own lives, so they're surrounded by podcast scripts, insane conspiracies, federal agents, and an offer from America that everyone, if they don't like their identity, can just start over. The Nihilisticats was named the Pop Culture Novel of 2024 by Indie Reader. If you like books like this, I hope you'll check it out. And thank you for watching.